Welcome to the final part of my series about Louis XVI. In this video, we'll talk about his trial and execution. For the events leading up to Louis' trial, please watch part 1 and 2 of my 3-part series. In December of 1692, the National Convention organized a mock trial for the king, violating all legal rules. Violations of law were many, such as the convention itself acted as investigator, prosecutor, and judge. The deliberations were not secret, but there was an audience in the stands. The verdict was not motivated. The majority was not the 3/4 majority legally enforced for death sentences. No appeal was possible. The king's lawyers were only given a few days to prepare his defense. No witnesses were heard, and so on. A few brave men dared to stand up for the king. Delegate Jean-Denis Lanjuinet spoke to the audience. "I see here only sworn enemies of the king, at the same time prosecutor, witness, juror, and judge, for crimes you yourself have committed." On this occasion, the king was referred to by the revolutionaries as citizen Louis Capet. Capet was chosen as a last name due to Louis' descent from Hugo Capet. Just before the king's trial, it was arranged for every delegate of the convention to come forward and vote publicly, which destroyed the hopes of the defense, because doubters never dared to vote publicly against the Jacobins. The rules of the game were adjusted once more when the plea of the king's lawyer, Raymond de Sèze, had made a deep impression. The convention needed time for the plea by the king's lawyer to be forgotten, and sentencing, which was scheduled immediately after the plea of the king's lawyer, was postponed. From January 16 at 10 a.m. until January 17 at 8 p.m. 1793, the convention voted on the fate of the former king. Results of the ballot: 366 votes for the immediate death of the king, 34 votes for the suspended death, 319 votes for banishment, and 2 votes for forced labor. The public and even Robespierre were shocked by the opportunism of Louis-Philippe of Orléans, a member of the royal family, who voted in favor of the death penalty. Louis then asked for his sentence to be suspended. A new vote was taken. This vote ended on the 20th of January at 2 a.m. Out of 690 votes, 380 were against the suspension. This sealed the king's fate. Louis asked permission to see his family and the confessor without the presence of officials, which was allowed. The death penalty would be carried out by guillotine on Monday the 21st on the Place de la Révolution, now the Place de la Concorde. The 39-year-old Louis Capet was taken to the guillotine in a glass carriage at 9 a.m. He was spared the humiliation of the dung cart in which Marie Antoinette would be transported to her death. Next to Louis sat the mayor, opposite of him 2 confessors. 50,000 soldiers were on hand to guard the procession. When Louis arrived at the scaffold, he was not allowed to speak any final words. Drum rolls followed, and at 10:22 a.m. the sentence was carried out. After his head was severed from his body, it was held high and shown to the audience. His wife, Marie Antoinette, suffered the same fate on October 16. The death certificate of Louis XVI was drawn up on March 18, 1793. The original document disappeared when the Paris archives were destroyed in 1871, but it had been copied by archivists. Louis XVI was immediately buried in a mass grave in the Madeleine cemetery. His body was covered with quicklime. That year, on October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette underwent the same fate as her husband, and joined her husband at the Madeleine cemetery. During the Restoration, Louis XVIII had the remains of the royal couple exhumed. They were solemnly interred in the Cathedral of Saint-Denis. Louis XVIII had a chapel, Chapelle Expiatoire, erected on the site of the old cemetery, which can still be visited. A memorial mass for the royal family is traditionally held on January 21. The guillotine proved it had a massive hunger for blood, and 70 of the members of the convention, among whom Robespierre, were executed themselves in the years that followed. While some of the convention members made good careers for themselves under the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte, their luck did not last either. After the Restoration, elections were held that gave an overwhelming parliamentary majority to the counter-revolutionaries who sought retaliation. A legal framework was created for the removal of the revolutionaries and Bonapartists from the state apparatus. A law of 1816 banned all king murderers from France. This ends my 3-part series on the life of Louis XVI. Thank you for watching. A new video about the Bourbon dynasty will follow next week. See you then.